Yet, just as I reached her, someone else caught her attention, turning her away and stealing the moments I had so dearly anticipated. I stood there, watching helplessly, as she hugged another church member, their embrace filled with tenderness. Her voice reached me, a delightful sound to my ears, melodious and soothing, calm, collected, peaceful. I tried to discern her accent, something I could listen to all day. She clearly wasn't from here, but I couldn't place her origin. Honestly, I felt a pang of jealousy. The conversation she was having could have been with me. I told myself it would be rude to interrupt. If she's meant to be mine, we'll have our moment alone, I thought, trying to ignore the distractions around us. With a heavy heart, I returned to my seat, chastising myself for my lingering stare. "Don't be a weirdo," I silently scolded, trying to look away. Yet, despite my efforts, I couldn't tear my eyes from her radiant figure, a bittersweet ache throbbing within me, an ache of unfulfilled desires and unrealized dreams. As the benediction sounded through the sanctuary, I opened my eyes to find she had disappeared, leaving a hollow emptiness inside me. Her sons were still there, seated quietly. Compelled by my curiosity, I approached them and expressed my admiration for their well-mannered behavior, a reflection of their mother's love. I stayed, hoping to see her return, knowing her commitment to the church. When I asked the youngest why he didn't attend children's church, his answer was heart-wrenching. "I want God to reconcile my mom and dad so we can be a family again, so I stay here, in the big church to pray." His words crushed me, obliterating my desire to connect further with their mother. Certainly, she was married, or perhaps it's more accurate to say she had been. If her youngest son is praying for his parents to reconcile, who am I to oppose such a wish? While I was still reeling from this revelation, the clock reminded me it was time to pick up Noam from the children's class. Saying goodbye to the boys was difficult for me, though they each reacted differently, their responses imbued with genuine warmth. As I left the church, a deep sense of devastation overwhelmed me, intertwined with a burning desire to know her more deeply, to hold her, and to share my innermost thoughts and feelings with her. Understanding that she is navigating a broken relationship and knowing her children hope for their parents' reunion only added to the complexity of my emotions. Don't misunderstand me. I value family highly and believe it's best for children to be raised by both parents. But in such a situation, what is one to do? For the first time, I found myself wishing a prayer would go unanswered. Yet I know it's not my place to decide. This is in God's hands. Was I being selfish? Yes, undoubtedly so. I realized what I was feeling was genuine. My heart resonated with hers. This wasn't mere infatuation or selfish pleasure. I fell in love with a woman I barely know, rediscovering a capacity for love within myself that I thought was long gone. One Sunday, I noticed she had changed where she and her boys sat. I wondered why, a flurry of thoughts racing through my mind, though I tried not to dwell on them. I kept my distance, continuing to watch her discreetly, having halted any attempts to connect further. Her elegance and grace enthralled me, and I took joy in simply observing her. Seeing her brings immense happiness and makes me feel vibrant and alive. Sometimes, she was noticeably absent from church on Sundays, leaving me deeply troubled. Overwhelmed by my feelings for this beautiful woman, I confided in my sister. To my disappointment, Yael shrugged off my emotions, laughing and pointing out that I was infatuated with a married woman. I made the matter worse by telling her that she had 3 children, which only made Yael look at me with even greater skepticism. "That's a lot of baggage, brother," she said dismissively and mocked. "I hope they're all from the same father." I was disheartened. Yael had always been supportive, but now she struck a harsh note. She even warned me to stop sinning, quoting our Lord's words about the sin of coveting a married woman. "Whatever you think you're feeling, drop it now before you do something you regret," she advised sternly, her words biting and intense. It was unlike her to speak so sharply. Frustrated by her inability to understand, I protested, "Yael, you don't understand. This woman has captivated me completely, sparking an irresistible desire. All I want is to find out who she really is." Unmoved, Yael dismissed my feelings as a fleeting infatuation, suggesting that I was going through midlife crisis. Really, Yael. Another Sunday, Noam and I arrived at church exceptionally early. As we sat in my car waiting for the early service to end, I witnessed a heartwarming scene. There she was, my beauty, gracefully exiting the church, surrounded by a group of teenagers. A swell of joy and a deep sigh of relief overcame me. Finally, I thought, excitement tinged with questions. Why did she change her service time? First it was her seating, now this. Does she know I've been watching her? My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. I needed to know if she had noticed my observations. If she stopped coming to the early service, it would confirm my suspicions. The next Sunday, I made sure Noam and I were ready for church bright and early. Noam, puzzled by our sudden punctuality, asked, "Why are we so early for church?" Caught off guard, I scrambled for an answer. I wanted to tell him the truth, but instead I said, "Because the first service is quicker than the second." She persisted, "So, are we going to keep coming to this one?" Meeting my gaze in the mirror, I instinctively replied, "Yes, sweetheart." And so we began attending the 9 a.m. service. But after 3 Sundays, she disappeared again. I couldn't shake the feeling that she might be aware of my presence and deliberately avoiding me. She was always in the company of others, making it even harder to approach her. During the International Day ceremony at church, I had invited Yael to join us, hoping she could see her. Yael was hesitant, but ultimately agreed. After the Parade of Nations, I scanned the congregation for her, but saw no sign of her anywhere. Nonetheless, I maintained the belief that if she was meant for me, nothing could prevent that. I considered getting to know her sons better, hoping to foster some connection. Despite my longing to see her, I decided not to pursue her aggressively, recognizing the importance of respecting her boundaries and letting our paths intersect naturally. Life went on, and I found cheer in my daughter Noam and my work, especially after being promoted to head anesthesiologist at the hospital. Life was progressing swiftly, as it tends to, and I was excelling in my career. I was invited to speak at health conferences and teach medical students about anesthesia practices. Radio stations also sought my insights on grief and coping mechanisms, all while I struggled with my own internal chaos. It presented a stark contrast, my public persona of resilience versus my private vulnerability. At times, overwhelmed by the burden of loss, I would gaze at my left hand, wearing the wedding band that linked me to Naomi. This ring was a symbol of an enduring love, a bond I was reluctant to break. Yet I knew it was time to accept the beginnings of a new life phase, to let go of the past and allow myself to pursue happiness anew. With a deep breath, I removed the ring, feeling its weight lift like a fading whisper. I placed it in a box with her other possessions, symbolically moving it from our shared space. This act was both freeing and sorrowful, marking an end to a cherished chapter in my life. I resolved to focus solely on my career and my dear daughter, avoiding new romantic entanglements to protect myself from further emotional exposure. This was my chosen route to recovery, even though it's challenging. However, life continued to weave its surprises into our narrative. My sister shared the delightful news of her newborn, a joy for our family. We celebrated, our hearts welcoming this new life. Holding my niece, I felt an intense shift within me, a stirring that hinted at new beginnings and the enduring strength of the human spirit. Perhaps, amidst life's blend of joy and sorrow, I would learn that the heart can endlessly love and heal, guiding me towards a hopeful future. Though the path ahead might not follow my exact plans, marked by the scars of my past, gazing into my niece's eyes, I found the bravery to face the unknown and explore new emotional landscapes. Hope began to weave through my weary spirit, revitalizing the neglected parts of myself. August 2018 dawned, a day of routine laced with the anticipation of an upcoming surgery for me. Arriving at the hospital at dawn, I meticulously prepared myself, ensuring that the operating room was in perfect order for the scheduled valve replacement surgery. With my demanding schedule, my mother had agreed to stay and care for Noam. Although my assistant had already set up the operating room, I still conducted a thorough inspection, my keen eye catching even the smallest details. I had brief discussions with my team, reviewing the necessary protocols and preparations. Afterward, a nurse informed us that the patient was ready for me. As I entered the room to speak with the patient, I was taken aback to see her. My gaze fell upon the beauty who had won my heart. My heart leaped. A surge of indescribable joy swelled within me, yet it was tinged with uncertainty. Did she feel the same way about me? Her unease was palpable, stirring my own insecurities. Yet I was determined to be a source of comfort for her. To be a gentleman, I suppressed my desires, knowing that professionalism must take precedence. Then I learned her name, Mboti Kumalo. My heart soared, feeling that the opportunity I had been waiting for had finally arrived. I yearned to know the woman who had captivated my soul. I longed to invite her to lunch after her recovery, but restrained myself, recognizing the impropriety of such a proposition. Yet I couldn't help but find love in her innocent eyes, for they brought a sense of completion and vitality I had long yearned for. All I wanted was to gaze into those eyes, to be consumed by their mesmerizing beauty. After addressing the necessary questions for accurate patient identification and procedure, I wheeled her into the operating room where the rest of the team awaited. During the introduction and timeout, while Dr. Finn spoke, my heart whispered a silent prayer, a plea to the heavens. God, I trust this surgery will be successful. Bringing her into my life is a sign to make my move. And yes, I will do so once she returns to me. My faith intertwined with my desires, combining threads of hope and longing. Gently, I traced her arm with my finger, searching for the ideal vein to administer the anesthesia. I was delicate with my touch, filled with both purpose and tenderness. Once found, I placed the mask over her face, watching as her eyes closed, and she drifted into a peaceful slumber. Throughout the operation, I meticulously monitored the IV injection and diligently observed the vital signs on the monitor. My prayers remained a constant presence, a steadfast chorus in my heart, until the moment Dr. Finez completed the surgery and skillfully stitched up Mboti's chest. I injected her again, this time to rouse her from her anesthetic-induced sleep. As she stirred, her head moving in a dazed motion, a soft moan escaping her lips, it was a delight to behold. I couldn't hold back from watching her come back to me. "Welcome back, Mboti," I whispered, knowing she wouldn't hear me at that moment. I held on to the belief that she would eventually awaken fully, ready to embark on the next steps of our connection. This was just the beginning, and I was ready to follow wherever it led, eagerly embracing the unknown with a heart full of hope and love.